Hello and welcome back to The Content Bite. We are a podcast for people who use their words to make money. And our aim is really to help writers of all kinds create a thriving business and a career that they love. I'm Rachel Smith, a journalist, copywriter and content producer, and I'm the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for creatives. I'm here with my co-host Lynn Testoni. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So my name is Lynn Testoni and I'm also a content creator, writer and journalist. And I should warn you, Rach, and our lovely guest, Brook, that I have builders in my house yet again, and hopefully there's not too much banging in the background. But today's episode is all about attracting clients through blogging, which I think is really interesting.
It is. We're very excited to have a great guest on today, Brook McCarthy, who I know quite well because she's done 2 masterclasses with Rachel's List. The most recent one was on turbocharging your income, or turbocharging how much you earn, which was just awesome.
And who doesn't love that?
Yeah, I certainly learned a lot. It was very interesting. And we all want to make more money, and there's some great strategies in that one about how to do it. She's also done a really great one for us last year on visibility and why that's so important. But today we are going to talk about something a little bit different. I know Brooke has lots of great insights into building a personal brand and attracting clients. And one of the things she's very big about is blogging to do that. So, yes.
So Brooke, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself? Rachel has obviously worked with you a little bit more than I have. So tell us a bit about yourself and a little short bio would be great.
What you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm a digital marketing trainer. I'm also a business coach for small business owners. I have a background in public relations, which has been hugely influential to the blogging. And yeah, that's me.
That's you.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. Actually, public relations is an interesting thing because it's in a state of flux, just like journalism, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It is an industry that's had a bomb thrown down the middle of it, and it is in kind of 2 distinct camps now. And one camp is, I believe, very social media savvy, very digital savvy, and perhaps even, erring on the side of social media agencies that call themselves PR agencies.
Yeah.
And then you've got, the other side of the camp, which are the old school people who have not really moved with the times and who are often rather out of their depth with social media and influencers and digital and all of that, and kind of struggling to keep up with this, omni-channel marketing that everybody's doing nowadays. So, yeah.
I know I struggle with that omni-channel marketing.
I think I like the words omni-channel marketing. I'm going to use that. That's awesome. So do you speak to a lot of a new buzzword? Do you see freelance writers? Do you think do you think there's a lot of issues that they're going through? And what do you see as their sort of stumbling blocks when you do your coaching business?
Oh, look, I remember when I started, I've been self-employed for 12 years. And when I started in 2008, it was the middle of the GFC.
Yes.
So here we are, full circle, back in the middle of the dumpster fire of 2020. So it wasn't like the perfect time to start a business. And I didn't start a business for all the positive reasons. I started a business because I had a hell job in magazine publishing for a brief period of time.
Yeah, we've all been there.
So some of us are still there.
I think it's way more common than people appreciate. There's a lot of propaganda on the internet about all the positive, reasons why one starts one's own empire, blah, blah, blah. But there's not a lot of discussion about the fact that most people start self-employment for negative reasons. But anyway, I thought my key skills were writing. I was pretty confident with my writing skills, having a background in public relations. But I made the very expensive assumption 12 years ago that writers made no money. I was definitely wrong. Writers make excellent money, but I was suffering under that, misunderstanding or misperception that was a thing. So I called myself a digital marketer. Now, 12 years ago, this was the olden days of the internet. Yes. So, I did have experience. I'd been a webmaster for a big multinational website. But the technology was, vastly different from what it is nowadays, very rudimentary. And so I learn on the job. And so I see a lot of people coming into writing, and I think it's a fabulous, fabulous thing to do. I think there's a massive market for writers and copywriters out there. Everybody needs copywriting. Everybody needs a copywriter, even if they don't realize it. But yeah, insofar as I think your question was the mistakes people make.
Yeah.
I think one of the major mistakes people make is that they just think they're going to be writing. They think it's all going to be wonderful, which it is. It's fantastic. I highly recommend self-employment. Hopefully I'm happily unemployable for the rest of my life. But what we don't tend to appreciate is the business of being in business. We don't tend to appreciate that we need a whole bunch of skills that have nothing to do with our craft. So skill, the major two skills being marketing skills and sales skills. That's, absolutely pivotal to our longevity as writers. There's all kinds of different other things that can go wrong and do go wrong.
And do.
Oh, the joys of procrastination with the internet, at our fingertips. Time management, financial projections, pricing is always a massive hurdle for people. A lot of writers spend way too long, trying to figure out what the magical number is going to be, and they underprice themselves. The self-confidence that goes hand in hand with that. The self-care and resilience. Invariably, after a certain period, you reach a kind of a wall, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's how you move through that, how you build your own emotional resilience to move beyond that and to thrive. And then I think
really interesting. I do see a lot of new people suffering that lack of confidence. It's a really important thing. It'd be great to talk about that a bit.
For sure. And I think, there's generally a lack of support. Now, there's more support than what there was, but it is still very self-organised. We are still an invisible sector as far as the government is concerned. There's, COVID relief being a great example of that. There was next to nothing in all of the help that the government gave to businesses, because they don't really understand us. They don't get it. They don't understand what we do. They don't understand how we operate. They don't understand the tens of thousands of dollars that gets passed between freelancers and soloists. So what we tend to do is we tend to self-organise. We tend to self-organise in social media communities, and those communities can become echo chambers. So, you don't necessarily realise that you're surrounded by arseholes. Sometimes, and I see people asking for legal advice on Facebook, or they're saying, hey, I'm thinking about charging $2.50 an article. What do you think? And everyone says, oh, wow, yeah, that sounds great. They kind of find themselves in the wrong communities, getting bad advice from people that they shouldn't be, getting advice from. So, that can definitely be an issue as well.
I know that you've talked a lot on LinkedIn this year about, how we've sort of, I suppose, got this case of analysis paralysis when it comes to marketing ourselves, because we were all suddenly facing the pandemic. Businesses were going under. We didn't know how to do perhaps what we normally do. Have you seen that? Has that been a massive stumbling block for many of us, how to keep marketing during COVID?
Yeah, look, I think that's the case during any crisis that goes down. The same thing happened, in the bushfires, during Black Lives Matter movement and Indigenous Lives Matter, during the elections recently. It seems bizarre to be saying, hey, you need copywriting, when, we're literally people are just subsumed by this giant event going down. And I think what tends to happen is people get really frightened and they go on mute. They become mute, and they just kind of hang back and they wait and they wait and they wait. And so if that happens, if that's what you've done, then you're losing business, but perhaps most importantly, you're losing credibility. Because that's one of the reasons, one of the main points of marketing is to build your credibility, to build trust, to build your reputation. Reputation trumps branding. Doesn't matter how pretty your branding and your website is. If you have a reputation on the street as being a bit of a dill who doesn't really know what they're doing, your reputation is a bankable asset. And when you don't respond, or when you say nothing because you don't know what to say, then it absolutely hurts your reputation. Because leaders are leaders because of how they act in a crisis, not how they respond when everything's fine and dandy. So we've got to find the words, even if those words are difficult, even if the situation is complex, and it's always, it's often complex. It's not a lot of fun. I don't bound out of bed saying, wow, I can't wait to talk about, Black Lives Matter today. It doesn't fill me with joy and confidence. I feel, like a total dill. But, if something's going on that's affecting your community and that is subsuming their attention, you've got to talk about it. You can't bury your head in the sand and go, oh, it's, I don't want to get political. It's like business has changed. That's the old school way of thinking about things.
Do you think that sometimes if you're not sure what to say, it's okay to say, I'm not sure what to say, or that this is a complex issue, which it is? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know what to say. And then spotlighting or highlighting other people who are better versed and better qualified to talk, and I think there's not enough of that. I think it's a bit of a misconception in marketing that every single thing that you put out needs to be your original content. And as a consequence, not only are we making marketing far too hard, but we're missing the opportunity to signal boost good people and to give them a hand up and to share the spotlight with them.
I really love that. I also think, I've seen quite a few studies about how you really do need to keep marketing in a crisis. Otherwise, your business is left behind. And aren't there there's research out there saying that those who continue to do so come out of it better?
Heaps and heaps and heaps. Yeah. I gave a custom training earlier this year on behalf of a big multinational client, and all their clients were small business owners. So, there's lots of data, there's lots of statistics, lots of research to show that when you increase your marketing and increase your ad spend during a economic downturn particularly, that it has a massive effect, and that it can help a brand gain massive market share, because most people do the opposite. Most brands, most businesses contract. So there is more airspace for you, to say what needs to be said. And frankly, all my clients are soloists and small business owners. And I was fielding 275,000 questions during March and April in particular, because they're all dealing with their customers and clients who are panicking. So, we have to kind of help people during these times. We can't just kind of disappear and go, oh, well, if people need me, they'll know where to find me. I was helping clients to craft emails and to craft responses to their clients who were saying, I don't want to pay anymore. Can I have a refund? This is too much, everybody's panicking. And if everybody's panicking, you're just making a problem far bigger and worse, far bigger than it needs to be. So that, as a small business owner, we've got to project confidence so that we can inspire confidence in other people, because nobody's spending any money if they're not feeling confident.
Interesting. I actually have found this an interesting year with my own clients, and watching how different clients have responded to this crisis. And some of them have just pivoted, which is a terrible word, but anyway, but have gone with it and reorganised their business to be more digital or more virtual, and others have just shut up shop and said, oh, it's too hard. It's been really interesting. The ones that have embraced the change and just gone with it are in such a better position now as we're coming over, hopefully, what is the worst of it.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. And you have the business that you have now as a result of the marketing you did 3 or 4 months ago. And sometimes
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true.
But today we're going to talk a little bit about blogging because I know you're very big on blogging for business, and we wanted to talk about how blogging can help a writer develop a brand and attract clients. But I do think writers actually in particular struggle with this, even though that they're obviously quite good at the technical skills, but this need to blog and do it regularly. What do you think the problem is?
Look, I find it quite bamboozling myself because I know that writers get asked a lot for portfolio pieces, or can you do a sample, do you have any writing samples that we can look at it? And your blog is really, your portfolio, whether you're a writer or whether you do something else entirely. Your blog, I think about blogs as every single blog is a sales conversation or a customer service conversation or a marketing department conversation or a research and development conversation, and it allows you to scale yourself. It allows you to, speak to a far greater volume of people, over time for many, many years to come. So my 2 most popular blog posts, for example, are at least 3 to 5 years old. And these 2 blog posts are currently bringing me more website traffic from Google than is coming to my homepage, which is pretty phenomenal. Yeah. So look, I think also that writers tend to kind of they take it all a bit too seriously, and they suck the joy out of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like they make it out like it's, they set the bar way too high and they make it out like it's a huge big deal and it needs to be pixel perfect. Blogging for me is one of the most enjoyable things that I do in my business, because it not only is it a pleasure for me to write about things I'm interested in, and to have people reading it, like it's a privilege. It's a privilege to press send on an email and, send my writing all around the world to thousands of people. And when they email me back or when they read it and they say, hey, I liked what you wrote, it's awesome. It's, it's a fabulous privilege because, we write to be read, right? One of the reasons that we enjoy writing is we want somebody to read it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really true. I think, though, like writers, especially like from the position that Lynn and I are in with so many bylines over, decades, we have the blog itself becomes this big stumbling block. And I know that, Brooke, you and I have talked about this, a couple of times, because even for me, I look at it, I'm about to launch my website, and I look at the blog and I think, oh, geez, what do I write about? I have no problem with Rachel's list. It's a very different, coming up with ideas, commissioning people. I love that. That blog has really found its feet, I think. But for my personal blog, I struggle with topics. And I know I once said to you, I instinctively thought, I have to write about what I do, how I do it, like, 10 great secrets to good copywriting or something like that. And you said, no, that's not what clients want to read. I remember having that discussion with you, and it was a real light bulb moment. So what is it that we should be writing about as creatives, as copywriters, as journalists?
Look, I think it's a sign of being a geek, Rachel. We as geeks think that what we do is super interesting, and that our clients aren't necessarily geeks, right? The reason they're employing us or considering employing us is because we are geeks and they are not geeks in that particular topic.
They want us to look after it all.
Exactly. They don't really give a flying stuff about, exactly how to structure an excellent about page or how many words should go in a blog post. They don't care about that. And I think the major mistake that most copywriters make is that they blog about how to write and no one's interested. So So that they attract other copywriters. So unless you're a copywriting coach, unless you are teaching other copywriters how to write, don't blog about that. It's not interesting.
Isn't there some truth in the sense that a client would come and see a blog, you know, that you'd written about how to write a great about page and think, yeah, she's switched on, I'm going to get her to do my about page? Is that how it works? No.
Maybe, but, you know, I don't think so. I think the evidence is on, you know, every page of your site. And I've had, you know, I had another business coach who's actually a client of mine, a business coaching client of mine, because business coaches love business coaching. And he interviewed me and he was saying, did you write your website? And I said, yeah. And he said, I love it. I love every word of it. You know, so it doesn't, it's not, he's not looking for evidence that I can do, you know, what I claim that I can do. He's just gaining an overall impression of me and my business. And so I think, you know, the major thing that you could start with, that a writer could start blogging on, is the industry that they specialise in. So if you specialise in travel, blog about travel. You specialise in food, blog about food. You specialise in, you know, construction, blog about trends in construction. You know, whatever it is, that's what the industry is interested in. This is what, you know, the industry that you're seeking to attract is interested in. So that's what should be the natural topic of your blog. And that's going to help you as well, because, you know, you're hoping to learn more or as much as possible about this particular industry. So why wouldn't you be reading and writing about it? The other thing I think that's super important is to put your values, to weave your values into your marketing. And this doesn't need to be obvious. You know, you don't need to say, I am trustworthy, I am professional, I am this, I am that. But it's important, I think, to put a little bit more of who you are and what you stand for and what you stand against in your marketing, and especially in your blog, because you don't want to wake up one morning and realize that you're surrounded by assholes. You know, you want your clients and you to be a mutual admiration society. You want to be doing business with people that fill you with joy, that you naturally respect and look up to.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Well, if I can just throw the cat amongst the pigeons for a minute, what happens if you've got multiple niches and they're all quite different? Aren't you then facing a situation with your blog where it's very, you know, diverse in what you're writing about?
There's a couple of different things. So your website doesn't need, and your marketing in general doesn't need to represent every single thing that you do and every single thing that you sell. You know, so for example, you know, one of the services that I've been offering, you know, for some years now is website design. I never promote it. I never talk about it. There's no mention on my website, you know, of website design. And yet, you know, some years I've made a big chunk of my revenue from website design. You know, think about it from what do you want to be known for? So what of your specialties, what of your niches do you wish to peg your reputation to? You know, you don't have to represent each and every multiple, you know, multifaceted thing that you can offer. And then, of course, the other possibility is that you just use your blog categories, you know, or your web navigation, your UX, to, you know, differentiate the different subjects.
Yep.
It's so interesting. Yeah, no, I really like all those sort of formulas and things like that. I think it's given us a really good idea. We also, do you want to tell us a little bit about the accountability program? Because Rachel was telling me that you've got this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And maybe talk about how blogging regularly helped your members find clients and make more money. All the things that we love to hear about.
Or gain authority, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think, you know, to answer the second question first, I think that people underestimate exactly what's possible with blogging. And so, for example, some of the clients who have found me through Google, who have Googled something and found me, include government departments, include local governments, so federal departments, local governments, big multinational organisations. I've had business coaches. I've had multiple one-to-one business coaching clients Google business coach and find me and engage me, which I find mind-boggling considering how intimate, a relationship.
Personal it is, yeah.
Is, you're showing me your profit and loss statement, you're asking me to look at your dirty laundry. And also, I've never offered one-off sessions for business coaching. It's always been a commitment paid up front. So I find that extraordinary. I've also been featured in magazines that have come through Google. So recently this year, for example, in August, I was featured in the New Daily, which is a Melbourne publication. And the journalist had Googled, starting a business, how to start a business, landed on my website and gotten in touch, and then, interviewed me about starting a business during COVID, of which case I said, of course, it's a brilliant idea. Goddamn business in 2020, you're never going to start a business. What are you waiting for? The world could end in December, who knows? So the opportunities that have come through my blog have been extraordinary, and the effort and input required by me has been minimal. I'm talking about one blog post per month. It takes me maybe 2 hours a month, maybe 4. And like I said earlier, this is one of the most enjoyable parts of my business. I really, enjoy blogging. So for the return that I'm getting for that effort, and for the fact that unlike social media, blogs don't expire. Nothing stays around for very long on social media. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. It's a voracious beast, constantly in need of feeding. Whereas a blog post will continue to bring you business and eyeballs and traffic for years and years to come. I cannot emphasize enough, what a great return on investment that it is.
Yeah. So you'd be crazy if you're not doing it, basically. You just have a great website, but then people click on blog and there's nothing in there, or it says, hello world. That post where they haven't deleted the hello world post.
I know.
And they've still got the meta in the in the blog archive.
I see so much of that at Rachel's List, like people sending their websites, obviously, to be approved to be on the main list, and I go to the blog and it's just got the meta and the hello world thing and no posts.
I think we have this I think we've got things asked about with visibility. Because of my background in public relations, I've always taken it for granted that I'm building my reputation and that this is a smart thing to do. And I think that with the advent of the internet and the rise of social media, I think what tends to happen is we think we're way more visible than we actually are. We think we're way more exposed and naked than we actually are. We think, we're the only ones naked walking through the main street and everybody's laughing at us. And actually, we have the opposite problem. No one knows we exist. No one can find us. We're constantly, working twice as hard as we need to be, forging relationships and trust in a one-to-one, face-to-face kind of a manner. And we are not making it easy for ourselves to make more money, to have inquiries come to us, to not have to work so hard to get the sale, to win the trust, to get the money in the bank. It makes everything so much easier when you treat your reputation as a bankable asset. And when you stop taking it so personally, I don't derive my self-esteem from the internet. I don't, look at how many people are following me on Instagram and decide whether or not I'm a good person or not. I derive my self-esteem from, different places and people. I have a close inner sanctum of, very good friends that I've had for years. And these are my, I'm not looking for other
validation
on the internet. Yeah. Like that's a full errand. Don't treat the internet as your unpaid psychologist. Always a good idea.
I think that needs to be on a t-shirt.
Yes.
It's really true.
So as blogging as a strategy, which sounds great, I do a little blogging, clearly not enough, but it does take time to build up a strategy, doesn't it? I mean, as you say, some of your popular blogs are sort of 3 to 5 years old. It does, I mean, that is one of the strengths about blogging, that it is there forever, but it does take a while before it gets traction generally, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think this is where guest blogging really comes into its own, and where podcast guesting, like I'm doing now. And Rachel and I have done a fair amount of it this year in particular, where I've interviewed Rachel and featured her in some of my blogs alongside other people I've interviewed, where Rachel's blogged on my blog and I've blogged on Rachel's blog. Where you're using other people's audiences to grow your own. That's a super smart thing to do. And, it was one of the very first things I did as well. I guest blogged on a Canadian woman's website because she was in top spot for where I wanted to be when my website was 2 days old.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah. And with one guest blog and one link from her website, all of a sudden I was on the first page of Google for my desired search term, and within a few months I'd kicked her off top spot.
Oh, no.
She's still cursing you.
Oh, look. I'm not a
dear.
blogger. She was blogging for pleasure, so I'm sure she wouldn't have minded.
Yeah. But if you're going to have, a kind of a regular monthly post like you do, you obviously need to have a newsletter strategy as well so that you can get it out to people.
Yeah, well, that becomes how I teach marketing is that, and your blog does not, we've been talking about written blogs because we're talking to writers here. But, it doesn't need to be a written blog, but it can be it is a long form piece of content. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video, whether you're a graphic designer or an artist and it's a vision, image-led blog, you've got at least one, if not two, long form pieces of content every month. And the email promotes that. Like the major point of the email is to showcase the latest blog that you've written. I also link other relevant blogs that I've written in the past in that newsletter. And then I promote, one thing, hopefully just one thing that relates to, the topic of the blog I've just published.
And your newsletter goes to all your clients and your members, or?
Yeah, so and random others. I think when you first start out, you know exactly who's on your newsletter.
Your mum.
I unsubscribed my mother years ago.
I think my dad's on the wrap up, the Friday night wrap up, and every Monday I get a little message going, "Really enjoyed the wrap up this week, Rach."
Nice.
My is not as kind, so I unsubscribed both my parents.
You got to do it at some point.
My mother's an awesome editor and my father's an ex-journalist, so yeah, they're ruthlessly unkind with their
feedback.
Fair enough.
But now, there's thousands of people on my email list. I don't know who they are, and sometimes I look at people that join and I think, oh, wow, I wonder why on earth that business would be interested in me, but, whatever.
I always get excited when it's somebody joins my newsletter list or follows me on social media or something who I don't know and who isn't part of like my friends. I think, wow, somebody else who I have no idea. And that's actually quite good. It means something's working, I guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this, this is the thing is you never really know when you put something out there. So I had a woman join my Hustle and Heart program just recently. She's Canadian. She Googled self-esteem in business. And one of my blog posts came up, which was, stop tying your self-worth to your earnings.
Yeah.
Which is something I blog about repeatedly because it needs to be said repeatedly because there's a lot of bullshit on the internet. Charge what you're worth, I'm going to charge what I'm worth and all that crap. And, she found me through the blog. She read the blog. She'd probably read several other blogs. She read the sales page. She booked in a call and she, purchased the program. So you can never know. You put something out there. There's another blog post I wrote, the year I lost my business mojo. It happens to all of us. If you haven't lost your mojo yet, you probably haven't been self-employed for long enough. Invariably, you're going to go through periods where, you're considering getting a job stacking shelves at Woolworths. It's par for the course.
Yeah.
But it obviously doesn't get talked about enough because every time I promote that blog post, I get great feedback from people saying, thank God you said it because I thought it was just me.
Interesting. Yep. So tell us a bit more about your sort of community and the courses you run. So how does that work?
Sure. So I'm a trainer and a business coach primarily. I do a very tiny little bit of writing, mainly sales writing and email funnels, and pretty much only for people that are already working with me in some capacity. So I have a group program, the Hustle and Heart program, which is the same name as my business, Hustle and Heart. That's 5 years old now. So we have a good cohort of creative people from the health industry. I just had a group call earlier before we jumped on today. So we had an architect from Canberra, personal trainer from Albury Wodonga, a Pilates studio owner from Melbourne, a social media marketer from Melbourne, a photographer from Sydney, a writer from Sydney, a writer from Thirroul on the south coast. So a mixed bag of creative and health industry people. They tend to all be service-based businesses. So that program teaches digital marketing and sales skills, teaches, pricing and profitability, planning, how to the business of running a business. And then my accountability program is called Momentum. Now, this is really for people that want to move away from reacting and responding to client demands to leading from the front. Because that's a massive transition, and it's not an easy transition, hence it being a membership. It feels preposterous to ignore emails and phone calls from clients who are needing something and to say, oh no, now is my business development time. So, I'm going to be, doing my business development. I'm going to be doing my own marketing and my own planning and my own blogging. It seems bizarre. And it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, because I think the people that tend to start their own business are people that are naturally very capable. They're naturally very helpful type of people. They get lots of referrals because they're so helpful, and they're being paid to be helpful. So what happens next? You got this, self-perpetuating mechanism where the email comes in, the, request comes in from the client. You're like, oh yes. And you jump on it, and you do the work and you invoice the work. And that's all well and fine and dandy until you find that actually you're just working all the time. You're not making any more money. And you've got these great ideas that are bubbling away that are never prioritized because you cannot find the time to do it. So that's what Momentum's all about. It's all about planning. It's all about getting organized. It's all about getting clear and having a direction and moving away from that reactive mode. And it actually grew out of quarterly business planning sessions that I started running in Sydney and Melbourne. Years ago, I think from memory about 4 years ago. And then it turned into a membership because I wanted that commitment from people to prioritize planning. I remember I had a phone conversation with a woman years ago, and I said, so are you coming to the quarterly planning session? And she said, oh, I'd really like to come, but I think I'll just wait and see what turns up. Missing the point.
Yes.
It's like there's always going to be something that turns up. There's always going to be somebody who needs something from you. You're either letting yourself, either you're in charge or you've swapped one boss for many and you are running around, trying to be all things to all people and letting other people's priorities become your own.
That takes away all the good things about working for yourself, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's really, really common. It's so common. And, some people never get out of that reacting and responding. The dirty secrets that I hear, and, they're kind of whispered to me in an embarrassed kind of a way, of people who have been self-employed for decades, who are at the top of their industry, who are well regarded by their colleagues, well respected by their colleagues for being at the top of their game. And yet, number one, they're depressed. Number two, they're not earning any money. And number three, they've got no boundaries between their social life, their personal life, and their work. Their identity is so caught up in their work that, their self-esteem is derived by how productive they are, and they're thinking, well, if I'm so good at what I do, why don't I have any money?
Yeah.
Which is a fair question, because money's not everything, but money does buy holidays, and it buys massages on holidays. both excellent things.
Fair enough.
Well, look, we're getting a little bit over time, so I'm just going to jump in with the last question, which really a lot of our listeners, are journos or content writers who might be starting their own business for the first time. Would you have any parting words of wisdom for them?
Yes, I would say tell everybody what you're doing. Send one email. This is always my advice, and if you've been training with me or coached with me before, you would have heard me say it. Send a mass email to every single person you know. You can remove the crazy ex-boyfriends and crazy ex-husbands, but tell everybody what you're doing. Tell them exactly who you're doing it for, as close as you can get it, and then ask them to refer people to you. So this single thing serves multiple purposes. First, your mouth is your best marketing tool and your easiest and most accessible marketing tool. Second, most of your business will come from your immediate network, especially in the early days. And third, not least, is that you got to get over yourself. You cannot hide forever. There is no point marketing and trying to solicit for inquiries and leads if you're hiding. It doesn't make sense. And I know it might be painful, and I know you might feel like you're walking naked down the main street, but you've got to push through that. You've got to push through that because it is costing you money to hide.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. So fantastic. It's so true. And I'm always surprised how many people don't do that. And sometimes it is that sort of perfectionist or maybe a fear of failure that they don't want to put themselves out there until they're just perfect, until their website is perfect, until they're ready, or and people
that
can
sounds familiar. Says the person who's worked on her website for 2 years. But anyway, it's coming.
It's coming. So thank you so much, Brooke. It's been great. I've learned so much and got quite inspired, and I think
thanks,
in these
Brooke.
in these sort of times it can get quite stressful, and I think you can get influenced by all the stuff going around us, and this is a really good wake-up call to make sure you focus on yourself, your business, and what you're doing.
And you're blogging. That's one big takeaway. If you are not blogging, start blogging immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not, yes, it's been an extraordinary year, and yes, it's been hugely stressful. I'm not minimizing that. I hope I don't sound like I'm minimizing that. But people are still spending money. And, we don't help anyone when we make ourselves small and when we deny, we deny our livelihood to ourselves. It doesn't make any sense for us to kind of, sabotage our earnings because other people are suffering. People still have money. Not everybody has been affected. A lot of my clients and myself have had very successful years. But if everybody kind of contracts and hides and thinks, oh my God, I can't spend any money, we're going to exacerbate the problem and make it far worse. So we've got to be confident. We've got to go out there, put our best foot forward.
I love that. Thank you so much again for all your wisdom. Anyone who wants to hear more from Brooke can check her out at hustleandheart.com.au. We'll also put all her details, where to find her on her socials, in the show notes, and we'll also link to the awesome blog post that she's written for Rachel's List. I think there might be 2 or 3 now, and they're really, really useful information. And also we'll link to the 2 masterclasses that she's done for us. She's really a dynamo. So I think that you should all follow her and get to know her if you haven't already. But that brings us to the end of the show, doesn't it, Lynn?
It does. So thank you. Thanks to everyone who's been listening and sharing us on social media. And hopefully they start blogging about us too, Rachel.
That'd be nice.
So if you like the show, please give us a rating and do a review, because it does make a difference and helps more people find us. And I think we're getting charts now, Rachel, and we're moving up the lists. We're getting near the top, which is great. So we do, and we also get a lot of lovely feedback from seeing your reviews, and we really like it. Thank you.
It's great. It also helps us come up with topics. So, you can also email us with topics that you'd like us to cover, or people that you'd like us to talk to, even guests that you'd like us to talk to. But your reviews help us see what's really popular. So thank you very much to everybody.
Very much. Terrific. And we'll be back next week.
We will. Head to the Rachel's List blog to grab the show notes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.